game team fights against SKT without being in a huge hole, that's the hard part.
That's right, so here we go. Picks and bans for game number 1 between SK Telecom and Samsung. The Nidalee and the Azir being banned right away. I think one of the most interesting things to me is that so far in their 3 matches, SK Telecom has not had to have a lot of very champion picks.
They've almost shown nothing though. You look at Faker, first 4 games of the season, Azir every time. You look at Bang, the first 4 games of the season, Ezreal every time. They very much went for very similar picks to what they were playing previous patches at MSI and didn't have to show anything and looked good doing it. Now we did see the Anivia from Faker. He had the counter for the Vladimir meta. Let's see if he has any more counters, because it's going to be so interesting to track these 2 mid laners who right now are 1 and 2 for me in the league.
Yeah, pretty heavy mid lane bans already. Just that Nidalee in the jungle. Other than that, Victor, Azir, Ryze banned out. And what's SK Telecom going to do for their final ban? That Vlad might be a contested pick, even though neither team has played it so far this season.
SKT, usually with Bengi in the lineup, are forced to ban junglers. They ban no junglers. This has been a team that's banned basically Nidalee, Kindred every game, and maybe we're moving to a world where that's less necessary in 6.11, but on this patch, on 6.10, notable that for now, only the Nidalee ban comes through, so Kindred is available.
Sivir is the last ban, and so it's going to be a first pick Kindred going over to Bengi.
But for SK Telecom, for Bengi in particular.
Yeah, well, I mean, this guy has kind of reinvented himself a little bit after taking that time off. Went in the hyperbaric time chamber and came out perhaps Super Saiyan Bengi, and he's already had one of the longest and most successful careers of anybody in League of Legends history.
But the real question is, can Bengi build a Sightstone on Kindred? That's the question that...
Maybe.
Look, and of course he wasn't building Sightstone on Graves, but the big story about his Graves was very vision denial focused. He was very much different from, say, Peanut on a champion like that, so his playstyle doesn't necessarily lend itself to Kindred, so it's going to be super surprising to see how he does on a more mechanically demanding champion like Kindred.
Yeah. So Echo and Braum, the first 2 picks over for Samsung. Wraith has played that Braum 3 times this season. And, well, I mean, we've seen the Vel'Koz before from Faker, but that'd be an early pick, and it'd be a bit of a surprise. I think Maokai seems like a logical lock-in, but Thresh, that's something I was not expecting if they do decide to go for it. The Karma makes a lot more sense.
Would be a flex pick as well.
Yeah.
Expected to go to Wolf in the support role just because Samsung probably going to have the last pick for Crown in the mid lane. They've already committed to their top laner, so expecting there to be heavy focus on getting that beneficial mid lane matchup. When you see Karma, already there's going to be alarm bells about whether this is going to be a mid lane or a support Karma.
With the Sivir banned, though, I think you need to take that Ezreal away, and Samsung knows that. I mean, Ezreal's been Bang's most played champion so far this season. You don't want to give SKT the high damage poking Karma Ezreal lane, so Samsung takes it away along with the Elise.
It's been Ashe and Ezreal mainly for Ruler. Basically every time he sees a Lucian first pick, he'll just answer with Ezreal in a later rotation. He's going to take the Ezreal as a blocker pick. Bang has been doing this as well. Ezreal priority shot up during the Champions Finals last season as people realized the safety of Ezreal was very important in a meta that was all about teleport flanking. Action onto SKT. What is the mid lane pick going to be? That's the interesting thing for me.
Caster Tribute rotation going for Bang's hovers. Now, Wolf has played that Nami a couple times, so that wouldn't be too surprising. Although it would be maybe a little bit surprising to see Faker take the Karma, but he can certainly do work with that.
Worth noting that Faker's Karma was one of the reasons the team struggled towards the end of the regular season last season. I think they had some issues, and Faker was overextending like crazy on this pick, and we see Jhin locked in. Interesting.
Yeah, Jhin and Nami. So it's good that they have some disengage for that Jhin, and Faker also can help keep that safe. But interesting team comp for SK Telecom. This is the first Jhin we've seen from them this season.
It's definitely not been a staple pick of Bang. It's been more of a prey special. He played it plenty of times on the Tigers, and other AD carries have messed around with it.
Well, the Varus for Crown would certainly make this a very strong comp for Samsung as well.
I mean, Varus can just sit back and line wave clear very, very safely, so it wouldn't be a bad draft. It feels like Jin's strength in a team fight is related to how powerful his frontline is, and Maokai obviously will do a great job contributing to that. They don't really have any other frontliners though, so there is always that world where Jhin is not able to get a lot of damage out. It's not a consistent damage AD carry. Ezreal from his range can always put out relevant damage. It's more difficult for Jhin to pull that off. Waiting for Samsung to settle on that mid lane pick, though.
Well, looks like they're going to let the Varus be locked in. And so I would say pretty strong, pretty standard composition for Samsung, but something a bit more experimental than we're used to coming out of SK Telecom. Intriguing.
It's the first time they've been forced to go somewhere different. The Anivia mid was very good showing in the last series against the double sustain mage of the Vlad and the Swain, but this is, again, something very different. It's not a comp they've had to pull off this season, and Samsung do have a lot of options in the mid game if they can get the pressure advantage, as you'd expect, around the Echo. We know the duo of Varus and Ezreal put out so much poke under turrets, and the wave play is decent for SKT, but it's not outstanding.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, just so many questions about SKT's comp. You know, are they able to play these champions, especially Bang on that Jhin? It's going to be cool to see. Faker's yawning, though. He's clearly not worried going into this one. That's Faker, though.
Big story for SKT is, can they put QV behind? Because if Echo isn't a frontliner, it's worth knowing that Samsung want to peel back for this Varus and Ezreal. They're going to very much be a disengaged comp. They won't really be able to get on top of Jhin. And if Jhin is exploding the front line, he's going to be in a really good spot to carry the game.
That's right. So Samsung versus SK Telecom, the two unbeaten teams here in LCK Summer, going at it in this best of 3 to cap off what's been a great week of League of Legends here on OGN. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'm ready. Papa Smithy, are you ready?
I cannot think of anything I want to see more than the Bengi Kindred.
Oh yeah, well, I'm ready for a lot of stuff in this game, man. Let's do it. SK Telecom versus Samsung, game number 1 of this best of 3. Who takes the early lead? Let's find out. And of course, the Cloud Drake, as usual, it's the 3rd time in a row today. SKT versus Samsung, game number 1. The cheers come out from the crowd, and we are on the rift. So,
on my monitor, I could see a 5-man invade from Samsung. They poked out Bengi a little bit. They want to get vision around the blue side of SKT.
Wow, okay. And we have not seen a lot of aggressive invades, really, in this meta. So, already something a little bit unexpected from Samsung. SK Telecom responding with some deep wards. They really want to spot that lane swap, don't they?
Yeah, both teams seem to be really invested in spotting the lane swap.
Makes sense.
Neither of the duos lane particularly powerfully. I'd probably give the slight advantage to the Jhin and Nami.
Yep.
So many fans out today to watch the top 2.
Well.
Hey, Wolf.
Oh, Wolf. Slow zoom into the wolf. The eyes of the wolf.
Lane swap successfully navigated by Samsung. Whenever you put down all the early vision you have in one area, you can basically guarantee that a lane swap will happen, because otherwise you're swapping back into an area where you don't have vision. So it makes a lot of sense to continue with that.
All right.
Strong side starts by both jungle support duos, so no one's getting risky or frisky trying to jungle on the weak side.
Yeah. And the Faker versus Crown lane. I mean, you know, Karma has a decent amount of poke, but I think Varus is the one that's probably going to end up winning that war most of the time.
Sort of lane where if you gank it early, you can send the Varus behind. If Varus has to use Flash, because when you think of Varus, you think of him clearing waves with his Q confidently, but that requires a lot of levels in the ability and a bit of mana sustain, because the cooldown's actually very high in the early game. So the early tempo advantage is almost exclusively with the Karma. So expect to see Bengi try and influence that. Otherwise, just naturally over time, Crown will get in a really comfortable position around level 9.
Right. All right, Ambition going for an early steal too, but they're going to do the lane swap anyway, so no big surprise there. It is so weird that we've seen all these Cloud Drakes starting off, man. I don't know what it is.
I think Kilios and I was spoiled with all the Infernals and Mountains in the Telecom Wars, but especially today, what's going on with these Clouds?
We'll see when Monty and I were casting earlier in the week 2, we had like 5 or 6 in a row or something like that. It was insane.
The rotations.
It's the worst one, man.
They're not even that good for rotations, so it's not the best Drake.
Nothing will make us like the Cloud Drakes. Give up. Give up, Rito. Give us the Drakes we want.
I mean, the one thing I said, and I said this on cast before, you have to be very careful with the Cloud Drake, because if you change just a little about it, it becomes easily the best Drake. If it was 15 movement speed in combat, it'd be crazy strong. Because of how it is right now, it's quite weak, but how they tweak it will be interesting. I think it has to be a non-movement speed related side buff. Someone mentioned tenacity today. I think that would be okay, but it needs to be something, because if you make it too strong, movement speed was always something that people craved but couldn't itemize into naturally outside of 80 carries. So if you give combat movement speed, suddenly it jumps up to the strongest Drake.
I know Monty was talking about what if it gave you armor and MR, you know, kind of a counter to the Infernal Drake buff. If you gave it tenacity, I think you'd kind of randomly ruin pick comps on the other side.
I mean, 5% tenacity is kind of like a bonus, right? It's not going to make or break anything, but I take your point. I think armor and MR would be interesting, but I feel like it would be too much to have movement speed, armor, and MR. So.
Well, yeah, just take the movement speed off it.
And is it really a cloud anymore?
Well, I don't know. Not really. You could make it a Ice Drake.
Yeah, Ice Drake.
I mean, because we have water, and clouds are just the gaseous state of water, right? So why can't we have the solid state?
Solid state, coming to you soon.
Maybe. Probably not. All right, Kube's going to recall, and we'll see where he heads.
It's worth knowing that itemization for this game actually betrays what Samsung wants to do. I mentioned that this is a late game team fighting comp. You see double tier, and that very much confirms that they're looking to play for the late game. You see an item like Forbidden Chapter for Faker, a lot more aggressive itemization available to the Karma. So early fighting going to be behooved for SK Telecom.
Well, that's what SKT's been so good at, right? They're good at like taking those early fights, dominating them, and then chaining that into a lot of objectives.
They just play to their comps very well, because SKT have been guilty of playing very passive comps. You know, they love Ezreal, for example, as one of the more passive AD carries, at least early. But they know how to play around what they draft, and there are definitely teams out there that struggle to do that, even at the highest level.
Yeah. So the first non-Azir, non-Anivia pick for Faker this season.
And I mentioned it during the pregame. He played the Karma towards the end of spring season, mainly when Lulu was nerfed and was no longer the go-to for Faker in the mid lane.
Right.
And he really struggled in some games, because Karma is less survivable than a pick like Lulu, who really needs to position very aggressively to get poke in. Famously in the late game, you put AP on Karma, and it only really helps her utility, because the way her Q works, it can be blocked by the first target, which is usually a tank that kind of shrugs off the damage.
Duke's getting a lot of time by himself up in this top lane, and he's developing a pretty nice CS lead. It took Samsung a bit longer to take down that bot turret, so nice little edge for SKT, I suppose.
Just one thing to note is that, as I said, Faker won't be able to do damage to the backline. Jhin also will kind of struggle to do that. So if they hold Cuvée down and can take down the front line, Samsung have to run in all directions. They'll be in a good spot, but consistent damage for SKT is really only Bengi.
It's interesting. Bengi, not the Kindred type of jungler as we know him right now, but like we said earlier, the guy's he's trying to reinvent himself, so we'll see.
I mean, if he can pull off the Kindred, then you have to be pretty confident for him moving forward. Kindred does see some nerfs on the later patches, but one of the main reasons he was taken out of the lineup was indeed his struggles with the meta, and meta was already shifting towards him. Kindred would cap it off.
Yep. Ooh, maybe a play onto Cuvée here. He's recalling. Can Bang stop it? I don't think so. I think he's going to get out.
Could have gone for an optimistic W, but didn't choose to.
Why not? So does SKT? They could, I guess, but I mean, it's Cloud Drake. It's just not very high priority.
Look at the inventory for Ruler. It's just so depressing. Triple mana crystal items. I mean, obviously, Iceborne Gauntlet is where he's going, but there's literally no power in his build whatsoever.
Hey, man, he's got a Doran's Blade.
He does.
That's some damage.
He's got a pink ward. He can fight for vision.
Exactly. That's right. Forget the hammer from Bang. It's not important. It's all about mana crystals.
Where the hammer goes, as you mentioned, the Caulfield's hammer will be interesting. A lot of Kindred players, a lot of Jhin players, as Wraith doesn't meet quite with Bengi in the jungle, but a lot of Jhin players have been moving towards Yoma's Ghostblade as a first pickup. Arrow from KT has been doing that a lot. Would be a lot of early power versus, as we mentioned, a lot of delayed power in all the mana crystals for Ruler.
This is a pretty extreme lane swap coming in right now.
Teleport coming in.
Yep. Cuvée teleporting back up to that lane, but the turret's already taken about half of its health and damage.
I mean, Cuvé's just kind of been walking around trying to meet and push waves together, because as you mentioned, the CS advantage when it comes to the top lane is already pretty severe between Duke and Cuvée.
Yeah. And you don't really want to give that Maokai and powerful head start like that.
Again, Duke this season, obviously 6-0, but 18-3-40 is his KDA, 19.3. A kill score of 18-3 lets you know that he's really been on top of things. Hasn't played a lot of Maokai, though. He's been mostly playing the Echo and Trundle.
Very true.
Swain looked pretty good from him in last series as well.
You know, the other thing to consider, too, is that this is letting Bang actually get a lot of CS on his own in that bot lane, too. So both the AD carry and the top lane are kind of benefiting from this lane swap so far. Bang a little bit less so, but still.
I mean, when you draft a comp like this, like Samsung has, you kind of have to get the most out of what you've picked. You've picked a lot of weak lanes in the early game. You've picked a lot of scaling, so losing CS on your top lane isn't really the biggest hole to be in. It's not the biggest sacrifice to have to make. So all things considered, things going pretty well from a Samsung perspective. It's when they start losing dragons, it's when they start losing turrets and a big lead opens up for SKT in the mid game. That'll be panic stations. But for now, so far so good.
Well, SKT's got the best dragon control in the league right now. So if I were Samsung, I would be a little bit worried about that stat.
Yeah, some of the stats are that Samsung has the highest first dragon rate at 75%, SKT just a little bit behind at 67. Interesting stat to me is that the Baron control from SKT, in their 6 games, they have never lost a Baron. They have 100% Baron control, which lets you know how they've been doing. Samsung, by comparison, are at 60%, so that's enough for them to be third, but SKT...
Oh, flash engage. Yeah, Duke moves on to Ruler here. Wolf and Bang are right there. Bang trying to lay down the damage with that Jhin. Duke may have bit off more than he could chew, and first blood goes over to Ruler. SKT trying to get a bit of revenge now as Faker comes in with his teleport, gets slowed down by Wraith though. Ambition flashes, and there's the curtain call. Ruler taken out by Bang. There's the snipe. And so they do go 1 for 1, but Bengi over the wall. I don't know if that was a great idea. Goes after Wraith, he does get it. And there is a Kindred ultimate. Lamb's Respite, letting him get the damage down on the Crown. Crown gets the kill in the end, though. Can SKT possibly chase him down? Faker being sped up by Wolf slightly with that passive. Now Faker using the shield, and they get the flash out of Crown. So tons of summoners. Fuse on each side. They get the cleanse out of Crown, too.
A pretty big advantage. SKT really wanted to fight because Cuvée did not have teleport, but in a 5v4 scenario, it's only a single bonus kill to SK Telecom. They're going for more.
Things Faker does. Didn't get that kill, but scaring Crown. Let's watch a replay. That was an insane series of events.
So it looked super aggressive, but the reason you do this is, once again, Cuvée is freezing in the bottom lane with no teleport. So Ruler and the shot calling from Samsung is strong. They take down the guaranteed member. It's just the fact that Bang is post 6 at this point. Tries to get the snipe with the W, well flashed by Ambition, but the moment one ult bolt hits, Ruler is most certainly dead. Ambition, if he tanked that up, would have died as well, so even though it looks like a misplay, but yeah, Wraith tries to walk away, but the last auto registers outside the range of Lamb's Respite. Good timing by Crown to snipe away the kill. No bonuses come through, so honestly, it's pretty even overall, though, because Samsung didn't invest their top laner, who just fight.
Crown caught out completely, and there's a kill for Faker. Whoops, Crown moving just a bit too far ahead, and on that Varus with no flash, pretty easy gank for SK Telecom. I think that's going to lead to a Cloud Drake.
Have that movement speed from the Karma. They have those earlier power spikes in. 12 minutes is all it takes for SKT to really put the foot on the accelerator, and it's just not a draft from Samsung that can deal with that sort of aggression in the early game.
Yeah. This is what makes SK Telecom so terrifying, is that they find these opportunities, and everybody tends to play it out pretty perfectly.
I think Find kind of undersells what they do to us. That they manufacture these situations. If you remember what happened in the early game, if you were to surmise the first 10 minutes, you're like, well, Maokai got a huge advantage over Echo. So the first time in the whole game that Echo gets access to a big minion wave, SKT all in and force a fight. There's no teleport available for Cuvée. Even though he got the free time with the minion wave, you can see he's still 17 CS behind. So SKT set up a situation where Cuvée both can't respond and doesn't want to. He very much wants to be freezing a wave and farming, and they punish Samsung for it. So even though it looked like Samsung were getting a free fun time farming, SKT set it up, they execute, and now they find themselves with a comfortable gold lead, but nothing outrageous.
Yeah. Good start, though, for SK Telecom, and if you're the Samsung team right now, I think you're certainly starting to feel a bit of the fear that everybody feels when they're playing against SKT.
Drafting a late game comp against SKT almost has always felt like...
That's bold.
Bold is an understatement.
It's very bold.
Oh, Wolf.
Whoa, no way.
Casually steals away the blue with Aqua Prison.
No kidding. That was an extremely nice steal from Wolf.
Because you've lost that fight, and as Samsung, you probably feel like you're further behind than you actually are. It's only 1,000 gold we know and a dragon, but the itemization doesn't help, though. You look at it, Merlinomicon versus Tyr, and just the parts of a Yomu's Ghostblade.
Sure.
Tyr Iceborne versus complete stats everywhere.
Now, Ambition had Smite up, too, so he just didn't Smite. Wolf just takes it.
Well, he thought he didn't need. He wanted to save the Smite.
I guess so,
but punish for it. But again,
yeah.
The items are early power spikes, and the champions are on the whole earlier power spikes for SKT.
Duke's going to pick up the Rift Herald buff now as well, so SK Telecom kind of getting everything at this point.
And the question is, how much can Samsung give up to get to this late game phase without just already being too far to be able to fight?
Well, SKT has a lot of the map already. It's looking pretty rough. Bang laning against Kuve. Right now in that top lane, they've got plenty of vision in there. They've also got Nami and Kindred in the jungle. Just keep them safe. Wolf comes in onto Kuve, putting in some damage, and they can dive this. There's the exhaust onto Kuve. He's going to ult back in. Bengi ready for him. There's a tidal wave. Great stop. And that's another pick for SK Telecom. Man, these guys are looking unstoppable. They will trade turrets, but SKT does it with the kill.
And we just came out of a series where I was talking about a jungler pathing with a split push advantage. In this game, you see Bang being sent to fight against Kuve 2 levels up, despite being AD carry, against Kuve, who had, at the time, a Spectre's Cowl and Merc Treads. He had no armor, so it was excellent lane assignment, but they go further than that. They push the vision there. They actually have the people ready for both a dive and complete vision. SKT just playing on a different level to Samsung in the first 15 minutes.
They really are, and you know, that's the joke. I mean, you and I were joking about this before the cast too. We were like, oh well, all right, it should be a good match, and then we're like, SKT 2-0. And we're only 15 minutes in, but already you kind of get that feeling, don't you, where SKT just seems to be in a class of their own. But you know, if Samsung can take the game long, they can come back. They're not that far behind right now. And
again, the comp does peak later in the game.
It does, yeah.
The reason why you make predictions like that, because I've bet against SKT a lot of times, and I'm not saying... And I understand that, Doa. You definitely have been behooved from supporting SKT from their start in League of Legends, but you look back at the game Samsung has played, they've looked very good in team fights in the late game, but they've definitely made some mistakes. Their Fiora play, for example, their split push play hasn't been the cleanest. They've kind of struggled with that, even though they've picked up 2 victories out of asking, and SKT have looked flawless in their 6 wins. So you have to go with weight of results, and the weight of results, both historically and this season, are with SK Telecom T1.
Yeah, 2 minutes till the next dragon. SK Telecom going to take out this mid lane, or bottom lane rather, tier 2 very quickly. Can they get back to defend theirs though? It doesn't look like it. So every time they've taken a turret, they've traded with Samsung, but do you think this kind of accelerates the game in a way that Samsung doesn't really want to have happen?
See, I don't necessarily think so. It's up in the mid lane.
Yeah, coming in onto Kuve. Kuve dodges the Aqua Prison. Faker gets the snare. There's a tidal wave. Kuve getting very low, and Faker picks one up. Just the chaining of the CC from SK Telecom. The synergy right there between Faker and Wolf. This team is incredible.
And to respond to your previous point, trading objectives when you're behind and trading objectives when you need to hit gold values to be able to be relevant is actually good for Samsung if it's a 1-for-1 trade. Sure. But it's the bonuses. It's the turret dive in top. It's now getting Kuve down in mid. I said that Samsung need Kuve to be strong, and he's the one that's been held down the most. Still only has magic, which is still building towards the Iceborne Gauntlet. If he doesn't have armor, if he cannot be a frontliner, Jin is just going to run rampant, and so will SK Telecom in the fights, regardless of how much gold goes on to Ruler and Crown.
Yeah. Only about a minute now till that next dragon, and I gotta say, SK Telecom seemingly to kind of have their way with the map right now.
I mean, Samsung can't fight for the next dragon. If they do, it's just a mistake. Jin will have a field day taking out people on the front line.
Yeah.
And Karma, you know, it's very, very powerful. 3-0 and 0, Merlinomicon and Needlessly Large Rod. She will still be DPSing out the front line. So Samsung, they drafted themselves into this situation. They need to accept the fact that the next dragon is not something they can fight for, but the one after that. In the next 6 to 7 minutes, if they get some items on their front line, we get closer and closer to a fight where Samsung can be competitive.
Yeah, the objectives have been keeping Samsung in the game. You know, trading those turrets has been able to keep them fairly close at least.
I mean, look at the gold. It's 1,500 gold. That's by no means massive at 18 minutes.
No, not at all. It's just when you watch the team fights and you actually watch these teams interact, it looks like a much bigger gap than it actually is.
So basically what Samsung want to do is basically feign interest around the dragon and let Cuvée up top get the farm. He needs items desperately. He's already 40 CS behind a Maokai. And so that's what Samsung really needs to focus on, because the dragon is not a realistic objective for them right now.
A good poke from Crown.
Oh, here we go.
Curtain call, yep, slows down Crown a little bit. Wraith blocking some damage. There's a tidal wave. Ruler dodges it. They're going to go in anyway. Duke in the back. There's a Braum ultimate. Turned around onto SK Telecom. Bengi has to back away. And so SK Telecom forces Samsung back for the moment anyway.
Teleport is cancelled, it's worth noting. Bengi DPS'd out a little bit.
So SKT not getting the picks they were looking for, but have they forced Samsung back enough to take that dragon?
They now have a double teleport advantage, so they have the run of the map, that's for sure. He keeps desperately farming up, so far behind, having core items to be able to frontline. And while the Drake was always going to be free, it is the freest it can be right now.
Yep, so that's an Ocean Drake now. For SK Telecom getting that regeneration.
Cloud next, Doa.
Oh, Duke wants that blue buff. And he's going to take it away from Cuvée. He's going to go in. There's a twisted advance. Cuvé's going to get the stun onto Duke, and that's going to help him escape. For now.
For now.
For the moment.
I mean, just look at the item disparity between the top laners, Spirit Visage and the Glacial Shroud versus now just the Iceborne Gauntlet.
Right.
We're starting to close a little bit, but definitely teamfight power advantage to SKT.
Well, it's going to be a pretty impressive comeback if Samsung can win this game. And, you know, to be fair, we did see them make a very impressive comeback against Jin Air in the second game of that series earlier this week.
Worth knowing that no one is going to be tanky outside of Duke. Duke does have the CS advantage. Duke is way ahead, but he is the only tank. So in a world where Duke isn't at a fight, if his teleport is down, for example, then you can definitely get poked out by Crown, who's piling on the AD at this point. But if Duke's there to soak up all the damage in the front line, that's when things kind of fall apart for now for Samsung.
Yeah. All right, mid lane pressure from SKT. Bang has to be a little bit careful there. Drop very low.
So one of the reasons why the Kindred's actually a better pick in this meta for Bengi than it was previously is that in a world where you had to stack up the jungle item to get the Devourer, you know, Bengi wouldn't be able to play his normal style of playing around lanes, of farming, of putting down wards. But you can see he's 30 CS behind an Elise, which is crazy to think of. Normally Elise is exclusively around lanes putting down vision. So, but with Blood Razor and now no stacking, he doesn't necessarily need to have the same trade-off that he wasn't happy to make in previous metas.
True. Teleport coming in and try to make a play here. Baker comes in for a little bit of damage. Duke, though, a little bit caught out. There's a tidal wave. They do catch Crown.
Damage coming in.
Yeah, that's right. Curtain call. Bang not able to quite find the angle. There's a three-man Aqua Prism as SK Telecom engages. Ooh, Bengi very low, though. Has to pop the Lamb's Respite. Ambition, he asks Repel to try to stay alive. So far, no kills. Ruler takes some damage as he duels with Bang over the wall of the Raptor Pit. And SK Telecom has to back away. So Samsung not winning the fight, but holding their own.
Just being able to not lose any members that stops a Baron pickup. This felt like Baron o'clock from SKT. A couple of kills and a Baron at 22 minutes has always been their playbook. A good job by Samsung. They avoid anyone coming down. Two people perilously low, but they can't even push the minions and taken out a turret. So massive win for Samsung to keep them in the game.
Yeah, they needed to have team fights like that. They didn't need to win a fight. They needed to just not lose it, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, when you have a scaling comp, going even and trading farm and not losing objective is a win on the side of Samsung. So Wolf was really smart, but you notice here Bang in the back line only can use one barrel of the ultimate that has to cancel. The three-man Aqua Prison is just beautiful, but it's so close to the turret, and the return damage onto Bengi forces the ult. Everyone has to kite back. Ambition repels at 0 HP. It was so tenuous, but advantage Samsung just because they didn't lose anything and they have the scaling.
Well, both Crown and Ambition got extremely low in that fight. They were like an auto or two away from dying. And if that had happened, you can imagine SK Telecom probably would have went for that Baron. As it is, they got some decent damage done to the mid lane turret. So close, but yeah, Samsung, I would say, the winner out of that last one.
SKT,
for what it's worth.
A lot of vision around Baron, so clearly that will be an objective they want to take. They're looking for any way they can take this Baron.
Yep. And they might be able to just take this mid lane turret. That'll certainly help out. Curtain call just to poke Samsung away as they finish off the objective. And they'll get it. Eventually. There we go.
And that means that an objective like Baron becomes easier and easier to engineer. You can push up the wave, get that aggressive vision, keep controlling this area. They've had a pink stuck on top of Baron for the past 3 to 4 minutes.
Yep. Wow, Faker going in onto Ambition, forces the repel. He comes down, Wolf right there. Forces the flash into the red buff pit. And it's things like that. You know, SK Telecom just getting the summoners out that are going to make this Baron possibly a bit easier later on down the line.
Baron damage isn't outstanding. Jin, for example, doesn't have a lot of standing DPS because he's more of a spell casting or spell weaving AD carry. But Kindred obviously is a very good Baron taker. So for now, it's just clearing vision. But 5-6 minutes time, tone definitely changes when it comes to SKT being able to rush down a Baron.
Another Cloud Drake on the way, so that Dragon not the highest priority.
We get closer. It's more stacks, which of course interact with the true damage burn on the Elder. So
I suppose
you still rush it down when you can for SK Telecom.
Yeah, they'll take it, but they won't. They probably won't make a point of it, you know? Not with the Baron up.
SKT desperately want the Baron because the moment you get Baron, suddenly Maokai and Karma is the most obvious turret dive comp.
Yeah.
You just go, you ignore turrets and you basically go for the dive and pick the kills up from there. And the wave clear from Samsung is good, but of course Baron buff negates a lot of that with the extra HP on the minions. So that's for sure the main objective for SKT, and they want to rush it down as fast as possible.
Yeah, Samsung able to get vision on the Baron area now. As we see Duke and Kuve fighting it out. Bot lane. I gotta wonder though, when is Samsung, or rather when is SKT gonna come back and grab that vision around Baron again?
And the fights will still be very competitive. This is where the item builds decided to take form for Samsung. We've already seen there's fights where if Duke is not the one in the front line, you know, Bengi, for example, does explode very quickly. The rest of the members are very squishy. So there is a fight that Samsung can win at this point. They just don't really have the map pressure to get it down. Ambition's caught.
Whoa, he is indeed. Chains of Corruption come in to try to delay that. Ambition. Oh, they do take out Nami. Nice true shot barrage from Ruler. Ambition, meanwhile, has to run away. Very low health. Yep, teleport coming in behind SK Telecom. Faker may be in trouble here. Bengi, though, ready to jump right on Kuve as he comes in. Bang with the curtain call. Wraith blocking the damage on that Brown. Great job there. Duke, very low, needs to be careful, stays alive. Do the Lamb's respite. Wraith takes one more hit from Bang as he comes in. So many low health members of Samsung, but here comes Kuve back with full health again. And SK Telecom, they have to back away.
Samsung have team fought so well this season. They're so smart at kiting back, having the terrain help them out. No one dies once again. Close but no cigar for SKT, and in fact, they lose a member.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, Ruler looking really good on that Ezreal again. They do pick up that Cloud Drake, so they'll be moving a bit quicker out of combat anyway. Ooh, Faker needs to be careful. There's a cocoon onto him. He's going to try to get out of it. Ambition taking a lot of damage. Been able to escape. But Ruler comes in for the snipe on Faker. This rookie is so good. And now SK Telecom, they may have let Samsung stay in this game a little bit too long.
Faker dies with his flash up. This, unfortunately, is his tendency on Karma. You know how strong Karma is at poking if you can get in that sort. If you can weave in the Q, but you also open yourself up to damage, and that's all Faker managed to do in that scenario.
Yeah. 20 seconds until he's back, and Samsung in a great position to go for this mid lane turret. Wraith has been doing a great job on this Braum, blocking a lot of damage from Jin. There's a chains onto Bengi. They land the long-range cocoon, but Bang just has to pop that ultimate to zone. Wolf throws down the tidal wave. Maybe they've caught Wraith here. Duke comes in, gets the arcane smash. Looks like Wraith may go down or not. Flashes away, still alive. Bengi trying to get the damage done on that Kindred. Here comes Bang now. The shield again from Wraith doing so much work. He finally dies, and SK Telecom finally pushes through a double kill for Faker as he goes deep, maybe a bit too deep. Who am I kidding though? It's Faker. He's got the shield. He wraps up Ambition, and there's another snipe from Bang. SK Telecom, just when you thought they were in trouble, comes back with a near ace over Samsung.
And you just see the value that they got out of taking the outer mid lane turret. They got that deep ward in. Faker to teleport so aggressively into the chunked out backline from SKT. It looked crazy because you remember at this point that a lot of people are being DPS'd out.
Yeah.
And SKT had very low health bars, but they keep pursuing, they keep chasing. Like, how are they going to do this? They only have the Maokai CC. But Faker was able to teleport right into the backline.
There he is.
That's what happens when you get an outer mid lane turret. That's why everyone fights for it, why we see those ARAM wars. And from there, the movement speed from Faker, the burst as well. His aggression has never been called into question, and they profit immensely from those picks.
And just look at this, between two turrets, getting hit, Ambition with more health, knows his cooldowns, gets the shield, help Bang pick up the kill, and man, this has been a great game so far. Samsung's been playing really well too, but SK Telecom may just have enough now. They're 6,000 gold ahead. They've gotten the turret lead, and they just took the Baron during that replay as well.
Faker had Death Cap already, now has the Zonias as well, and you wonder what AP really does on Karma. I talked about the utility. The shield is the reason why he can go for those dives is he has a very short cooldown, massive shield. He also has the root on the W, so if he can't hit that damage on the backline, just rush into the backline, root up the priority target, and the rest of the team will do the damage for you.
Yeah. Man, just thinking about our last best of 3, these teams are just in a completely different league, aren't they?
It's nice to see Samsung not overawed. They played pretty well, you have to say, for the first 30 minutes. They're just, at the moment, being outpaced by a better team that went for the early game team comp, and know how to play it, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be one of SK Telecom's longer games of the season.
And we mentioned it, the average game time for SKT is the shortest, around 35 minutes this league.
See, this one may be going a bit longer. We'll see. Samsung still with a chance to fight back. Oh, Duke, though, going in right onto Crown. He's pretty tanky on that Maokai. Braum ultimate comes in, but look at Bengi doing all that damage to Ambition. Here comes the tidal wave over the top, the knock-up on Wraith at the very end. SK Telecom backs away. They did save Duke, though, for the moment. And now those shields from Faker coming in. You can see just how tanky he is. True Shot Barrage takes a chunk out of Bang. Whoa! Okay.
That's a mistake for Ambition. Too aggressive with the recall. Was in vision and well spotted by SKT.
No kidding. And there's the Lamb's Respite, just giving them a bit of shielding so they can take down that turret. Getting a heal in the end, too. Now Karma with the big mantra and E. They're going to dive in on the Crown. He's dead immediately. And SK Telecom winning this team fight. Are they ready to end the game right here? There goes Kuve. Bengi with another one. Been looking great on that Kindred. They're going to turn back onto the inhibitor. The death timers are not that long, but they may be long enough. SK Telecom has the Baron. They're going now for the Nexus turrets. Duke can teleport back in. He will after that recall. And SKT, are they actually going to end it here?
He wasn't able to teleport on a minion to keep it alive, but it doesn't look like it's going to matter.
There it is. The second Nexus turret falls. Ruler's still alive. Crown not up in time. And SKT, just like that, a 31-minute victory over the #1 team in the league. The other undefeated team, not anymore. Samsung loses their first game.
SKT go to 7-0. Samsung now 8-1. SKT picking a scaling comp, which of course is what Samsung has done all season, into